Hello everyone. You're welcome to this week's Tech Tuesdays webinar on MDM Multidomain 10.3 HotFix 3 new features and capabilities. This webinar will cover the changes in 10.3 HotFix 3, which is for Flash Player depreciation in browsers and much more. Today we have with us Rono Gopal as a presenter for this webinar. He is a senior product manager and has experience in MDM for more than 9 years. Before we start off this webinar, here are some housekeeping tips. This webinar is for 1 hour that includes a 45 minutes webcast, and then we'll move over to live for 15 minutes to answer your questions. All dial-in participants will be muted so that the presenter will be able to present without any kind of interruptions. Your questions can be submitted through the Q&A section and we'll be addressing them to the end of the presentation. The webinar is recorded and will be available in the Informatica Support YouTube channel and the Success portal. The link will be emailed to you as well. Please set aside some time to complete the post-webinar survey and provide your feedback and suggestions for upcoming topics for the Tech Tuesdays webinars. The Tech Tuesdays webinar is a webinar series introduced within the Success portal. The Informatica Success portal is a microlearning platform that offers free and unlimited learning to all registered users. The Success portal lists your success offerings, your customer success manager information, bookings available in the Ask an Expert session, and customized recommendation and content. Here are a few links that you can go back later that will help you in your product adoption journey. Over to you, Rono. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Brinda. In this webinar, I'm going to talk about what's new in Informatica MDM Multidomain 10.3 HotFix 3, and then move on to the 10.3 HotFix 3 demo. At the end, we will have the Q&A session. That being said, let me start with the highlights of 10.3 HotFix 3 release. As you know, on December 31st, 2020, Adobe will end the support of Flash Player. So, as part of this release, we have removed the need for Adobe Flash in the browsers running the Informatica MDM Data Director and Informatica Data Control. That is, we have replaced the Hierarchy Manager, History View, Timeline View, and IDC user interfaces that used Flash components with new, modern, bright, and colorful interfaces that use HTML5. Specifically, the subject area based IDD and IDC will have the new Hierarchy Manager, History View, and Timeline View user interfaces. The new Hierarchy Manager user interface will also be available in the Entity 360 based IDD. With that, let me switch over to the MDM 10.3 HotFix 3 demo. In the demo, I will do a walkthrough of the new interfaces in both subject area based IDD as well as Entity 360 based IDD applications. Before I proceed, I want to mention that in MDM 10.3 HotFix 3 release, there is no change in the way subject area based IDD or Entity 360 based IDD application is configured. Only the business UI side of things have changed. That being said, let me proceed with the demo.
Okay, I have opened IDD and logged in as data steward. Let me click on the data tab on the left. And on the right, I see the default search query, which is the search employee by name. Let me enter the first name as John and the last name as Smith. Press enter. We see the search result. Let me open this record in the data view. Now this is the data view. It shows John Smith's employee information, address information, and electronic communication information. Let me change the address from table view to form view. Now on the top, I see effective date. That means the version of record, or the version of John Smith record I'm seeing is relevant or active as of today. Now, in order to know what's the effective start date and end date for this particular version, I will have to click on show effective periods, and system would then show what's the start date and end date, effective start date and end date. In this case, effective start date is 15 May 2017, but obviously there is no end date. The address record also is version enabled. The version of address starts from 7th July 2008, and it does not have an end date. Now this, as I said, this particular version is the latest and the greatest. Now, if you want to know what the previous versions and the future version, that's when we'll have to use the timeline view. In the prior versions, the timeline view needed Flash. Starting 10.3 HotFix 3, we have removed the need for Flash, as I mentioned earlier. So let me open the effective period view or the timeline view. Click on it. This is a new interface, which is definitely not based on Flash. Now, what I see here is one bubble, and it says the start date is 15 May 2017. Obviously, that means I'm looking at the latest version of John Smith's record. Now, I see one block here, a rectangle block. Let me click on it, and then I see one more bubble, and it has a different start date and end date. That means John Smith record has two versions. The version which we were looking earlier was the latest, and it also has an older version. And the start date or the effective period for the old version is from 7 July 2008 till 14 May 2017. So let's see what's the difference between these two versions. Now, when I click on this, the bubble I see on the right, information about John Smith. I see the name, marital status, education, date of birth, job title. Obviously, he's a director. When I click on the older version, I see the job title is senior manager. So that means starting May 15, 2017, John Smith was promoted, and that's why we are seeing a newer version. On the left, as I said in the beginning, address is also timeline enabled in this case. Now, if I click on this address, I see one address. That means there's only one address for John Smith, and that address is timeline enabled, obviously. So it has a start date and does not have an end date. Now, going back to employee. So initial data view, when we were on the data view screen, we were seeing the latest version of John Smith. Now, if you want to open the older version of John Smith's record, what we need to do is we just need to click on this version, right? And on the right, top right, this button open for effective date. Just click on that. Automatically, system would open that particular version, the selected version in the data view. And we can confirm that again if you click on show effective periods. System would show the start date and end date. And looking at these dates, we know this particular record is the older version.
So that was about the new timeline view. Let me move on to the new history view. Clicking on the history tab on the left opens a new history view. Yes, the history view looks similar to the timeline view. This view also has three panels. The left panel shows the subject area children. The middle panel shows bubbles. Each bubbles denotes to a history event. And the right panel shows what were the values initially and what were the values after they were changed. So let's say if I click on this particular bubble, I get to see the before and after. In this case, education level was bachelor's before and it was updated to master's. Now, if we want to see what was the before and after for system values, system field values, then you could select this and then you get a side-by-side view of before and after. Now, what you're seeing here, the first time when you come to this page, you're actually seeing the history view of the subject area. Now, if you want to see the history view of children, then you have to go to the left panel and select the subject area child, and then in this case there's only one address. That's why you're seeing one bubble. And also on the right you don't see before because this record was newly created, so there's no before image. Now going back to the overview, this from and to, the from denotes to the first date or the start date of the first history event, and the to denotes to today's date. Now, for example, let's say there are many events, and in that case, it really becomes tedious to scroll down and view all the events. That's why in this particular view, history view, we have provided this time scale. This could be used to group events together, and it definitely provides a better experience. Now, here what I'm doing is I'm grouping the events by hour. Automatically, all these events are grouped together by hour. So we are back to the data view, and what we are seeing here is the first version of John Smith record. Now let's open the hierarchy and see how it looks. So I'll click on the open hierarchy button. Now, as I said initially, the new hierarchy view does not need Flash. So when you open the hierarchy view, you would see the anchor record, which in this case is John Smith, and you would see the one hop relationship. So in this case, John Smith is related to Richard Miles. Now you could click on the relationship between John Smith and Richard Miles, and we could see the relationship details on the right. Now in this case, Richard Miles is a manager of John Smith, and the relationship start date was June 7, 2008, and it's going to end on July 31st, 2020. You could also see the periods for this relationship, the different periods. So let's click on the period. As of now, we only see one period, that is from July 7, 2008 to July 31, 2020. Now let's see what else we can do on the canvas. Now I'll click on Richard Miles once, then I see a number 1. Now if I look on the right, I see 2 line items, and it says related record, John Smith and research and development. I see John Smith on the canvas, but I don't see research and development on the canvas. And there is also this icon which says shown on canvas. Now this number 1 means that number of hidden related nodes. So as of now, research and development R&D department is not shown on the canvas. I can either click on these three dots, and in the drop down I could select show on canvas. That way the R&D department would be visible on the canvas, or I could double click on Richard Miles. So when I click on Richard Miles, I see that research and development department is related to Richard Miles. It seems Richard Miles heads the R&D department. Now when I double click on the R&D department, again I see the number 1. That means there is a hidden relationship. So I double click on it, and this time I see the department is part of Siberian Incorporated. If you see on the top, the effective date shows 2008. So let's do this. Let's change to today's date and click on apply. And we see that John Smith is still related to Richard Miles. So let's open Richard Miles this time and see. This time we see that Richard Miles is related to 6 more persons. And also Richard Miles is related to research and development. Now let's double click the research and development. And this time it shows that, let me relay out, that this department is part of Informatica LLC. Now let me expand the Informatica LLC organization, and again let me do a relay out. I get to see the different departments of the Informatica LLC. So here we see that research and development department is related to Informatica LLC, but in 2008 it was related to Siberian. So let's do this. Let's open Informatica LLC and see what's the difference. Why are we seeing that a different image in 2008 and a different image in 2020, a different relationship? So let me go to the data tab, or let me go to the search page from here. Let me open the saved queries. The third query, search organization by name. Let me open it. Let me search for Informatica. Right. Let me do a wildcard search. I get one. Let me open the Informatica LLC. Now I see the address, electronic address. So it is the Informatica LLC organization company, and the effective date is today's date. I can click on the effective period, and I see that this effective, the start date of this period was from 10th of August 2015, and it does not have an end date. So let me click on the effective periods to see the previous version. And obviously right now, this is the timeline view. And this is the current version, Informatica LLC, right? Now I see something in 2015. Let me open it. And it has a start date and end date from 2010 to 2015. I click on it, and it's Informatica Corporation. Okay, yes, it was Informatica Corporation. It was a public company. Again, I see a third block. Let me open this. And this time it says 2000 to 2010. And this is Siberian. Okay, so there is a timeline of Informatica organization starting 2000, 7th of February 2000 to till present. And obviously the company are different versions of the company. First it was Siberian, then it became Informatica Corporation, and eventually it became Informatica LLC. Now that's the reason why we are seeing that change. Let me go back to that particular view. Initially the department, the R&D department was related to Siberian, and now it is related to Informatica LLC. Now let's look into Richard Miles. We saw that Richard Miles and John Smith relationship is going to end on July 31st, 2020. So let's see why this is happening. What's the reason? So let's do a search for Richard Miles. Let's go back to the query screen and let me open the saved queries. And this time I will be searching by name, employee by name. And I'll just search by last name, and I will say Miles. The search, I get Richard Miles. Let me open this. And again, I see the current version, effective period. Let me see the effect. Okay, now I see that the effective period ends on 31st July 2020. Let me double check. Let me open the timeline view and see. Okay, here it shows that Richard Miles started with Informatica on 14th of March 2005, and his last date in the organization would be July 31st, 2020. Okay, so he is the VP of Research and Development. It seems he is leaving the organization. So it explains everything. So that's why we see the relationship between John Smith and Informatica ending on 31st July 2020. So let's do that. Let's assign John Smith a new manager. So let me go back to the organization screen. From there, open the hierarchy. And let me select July 31st. Right, click on apply. And expand the R&D division I see Richard Miles, right? Let me expand Richard Miles, and I get to see everyone reporting to Richard Miles. So let's open Ashok Kumar's details, right? So as of now, Richard Miles is selected, and on the right, any node that is selected on the left, the right would show the related node. So in this case, I have selected the Richard Mile. That's why you're seeing the blue border. And on the right, you're seeing all the related uh, entities. So I want to open Ashok Kumar's entity page and view the details. So what I could do is I could click on the icon and say open. And the system would open a new data view. So I see here, let me view the effective period. So 31st July 2020, he is senior director. And what's after that? Let me click on the effective periods. And from 1st of August 2020, he is going to be VP Research, VP of R&D. That means he is going to replace Richard Myers. So we know that Ashok Kumar would be heading R&D starting August 1st. So let's make the necessary changes, and in that way, John Smith will have a manager after July 31st. Okay, so let's create a relationship between Ashok Kumar let me relay out. Okay, and John Smith. And I would select the relationship manager of. So there are two types of relationship between person to person, spouse and manager of. So as of now, I'm creating manager of relationship between Ashok Kumar and John Smith. I select manager of, and I gave the start date from August 1st. And obviously there wouldn't be an end date. And I will click on apply. So what you see here is, let me relay out. Now, what do you see the dotted line? It means for this particular date, for this particular effective date, this relationship is not active. So there is a legend over here. If you click on it, you will see all the different styles of arrows. What it means, if you see this means inactive relationship. That is, that particular relationship is not active at a given point of time. So that's why we are seeing this particular dotted line. So I created this relationship. Now, all these, the rest, everyone, Nicholas, Stella, Amber, I mean, everyone is reporting to Richard. But if you see, the relationship is going to end on July 31st. So let's do this. Let's create a relationship between Ashok Kumar and all of these folks, because as you know, Ashok would be replacing Richard. So let's do this. Let's quickly create the relationship. Okay, apply. Then let me click Stella Adams. Same thing. I would be selecting manager off. I would be selecting August 1st. Then again, I would be doing the same thing. Apply. This. Apply. Now, the main thing is Ashok Kumar will also be heading the R&D department. So we need to create a relationship between R&D and Ashok Kumar. So create it, and I would say starting August, he would be heading the R&D division. So I'll click on apply, and then we need to click on submit. So we, in one go, we could do multiple changes, right? Once we are done with the changes, we'll have to click on submit. So you could review the changes, right? What all changes you made, it was add, you could sort of review it. And once you're sure that everything looks all right, you could click on accept. So this is how the inactive relationship would look like once I enable show inactive relationship. Also, one thing to mention, let's say if I want to add a node on the canvas, I could either use this plus icon, which would automatically bring the search screen, or I could click on the plus sign here, the same screen would pop up. So there are two options. And this particular icon here is to relate different entities. On the right, there are quite a few options. I could select a node and say hide on canvas, edit. Edit means edit the properties, the values, relationship between two or more entities. We could delete relationship, that means soft delete. We could also set today as the end date. That means we don't have to manually enter the end date. We could just select this option and automatically the relationship would be ended. And last but not the least, clicking on open would open a new tab. So if I click on Stella Adams and I say open, it'll open a new tab. So that was about hierarchy view. Again, just to recap, the timeline view, the history view, and the hierarchy view going forward will not need Flash. Also, it applies to IDC, that is Informatica Data Control. IDC interfaces use the same hierarchy interface as well as the history interface. So going forward, IDC would also not need Flash. With that, the demo is now complete. Now we will move on to the Q&A session. Thank you.
And we are open for live Q&A. Please post your questions in the Q&A bar and we'll answer them.
Ronan, so I'm starting through the questions. So the first question, how seamless is the upgrade to 10.3 HotFix 3?
How similar is the upgrade? Similar to what? Sorry.
I think the question is about like what would be the steps we need to perform to upgrade to 10.3 HotFix 3.
Got it. No, sorry, I didn't see the question before. Yes, it is pretty straightforward. You don't need to do anything. You would normally upgrade from, let's say, 10.2 or 10.3 HotFix 2 to 10.3 HotFix 3. There's no different step you have to approach. I mean, it's a normal stuff. And eventually all the non-Flash components would be replaced with a Flash. So you don't have to do any additional steps.
Thanks, Ronan. The next question is, okay, let me interpret it first. Okay, how does, so if you define the recursive or self-pointing hierarchy relationships, how do they look like?
Yeah. So in 10.3 HotFix 3, we do have this relationship, a record pointing to itself. Let's say a CEO reporting to himself or herself. So it's a normal relationship. So in the network view or the hierarchy view,
you will see the same thing. It will show, let's say, John Smith related to itself. So you'll see a line going from the John Smith block, so to speak, to itself in 10.3 HotFix 3.
Okay, thank you, Rona. The next question on relationship changes. So in the hierarchy manager, relationship changes were auto-approved. Is it the same, or can it go through the active was approval process?
So the experience would be sort of similar, right? If a relationship is configured and there is an approval process, it should go through the process. The approval process, I mean, yes. That said, there is some nuances. Raju, Kerry, definitely please reach out to us and we'll provide more details.
Okay, the next question, is this change applicable to Entity 360 as well?
Yes, Entity 360 has or uses the same hierarchy manager interface. So you would see the non-Flash based or HTML5 based hierarchy manager interface in Entity 360.
Thank you, Rana. The next question is about upgrade. There is an option to move to 10.3 HotFix 3 or 10.4. And the subject areas are in use. So which one would be the most recommended version? And probably I will take this one. So I think there is a much more factors just to choose the specific version to upgrade to. I think the best approach is to work with us so we can review your individual situation and your configuration and your strategic upgrade plan and plan together. Okay. Do we need to change our configuration to achieve this new view?
No, you would just upgrade from whatever version you are currently on to 10.3 HotFix 3, and all the non-Flash components would be replaced with, the Flash components would be replaced with a non-Flash interface. No configuration.
Okay. The next question again about the upgrade. Can we upgrade directly from 10.3 HotFix 1 to 10.3 HotFix 3?
The short answer is yes.
Sure. Thanks. There are some other questions around the upgrade from version 10.1 and as well 10.2 HotFix 1 to 10.3 HotFix 3. I think on all the upgrade questions from the specific version to 10.3 HotFix 3 or how to choose between 10.3 HotFix 3 and 10.4, there are certain pros and cons for every individual situation. The best way is to reach out to product management team or Informatica Global Customer Support team, and they will connect you to us so we can review and recommend the best path forward. The next question on Microsoft Edge Chromium browser support.
Yes, so yes, it is supported. We will be updating the PAM soon. Yes, our QA team has tested it. It is working fine. Yeah, it should. It should work without any issues.
Okay, the next question on the documentation, and let me take this one. We have a very good Informatica documentation portal. It's web-based. We did release last year. It has a really great search in there, and all documentation is published in there. Okay. Next question about circular self-relationships as well. I think, again, let me interpret this. Is circular self-relationships possible in a network? Say a company is its own global parent.
Could you please repeat it, Dennis? Sorry, there was a...
Yeah, so the question is about circular self-relationships, if they are possible in a network. For example, if a company its own global parent.
Absolutely, yes. It is supported in the hierarchy view. It is.
Good. Thanks, Ronan.
Thank you.
Can we update the hierarchy changes in the bulk instead of connection between each entity one at a time?
Unfortunately, that capability is not there in 10.3 HotFix 3.
Thanks, Ronan. Okay, the next one is Flash. Is Flash will take by after a while by going from. Okay, I'm not sure if you can interpret this question right, but let me try. So I think the question is about if it's a possible. No, I think if all the changes for the flash removal will be automatically taken care if customer is trying to upgrade from 10.1 HotFix 4 to 10.3 HotFix 3.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be automatically taken care of. As I said, there's no configuration needed. You would just upgrade from your current version to 10.3 HotFix 3, and all the issues, I mean, the flash components would automatically be replaced.
Thanks, Ronan. I think it's a repeated question, but I think if we see it multiple times, it's worth to answer again. So the question again about configuration changes. So when you upgrade to 10.3 HotFix 3 from the existing hierarchy configuration, if you need to implement any changes in the configuration or any other changes to get to this view.
Nothing, as I said, no configuration whatsoever. You would just upgrade from your current version to 10.3 HotFix 3. You would follow the upgrade steps in the document. All the flash components, the hierarchy, the history, and the timeline, all these old components would be replaced with the new.
Next question is availability of the recording of this presentation, and I think this will be available through the platform. Rinda, can you please point where exactly and when it will be published?
Yeah, this session is recorded and will be available in the Success portal and also the support YouTube channel of Informatica. The link will be emailed to you as well.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, the next question. Customer is on 10.2 release. Okay. Okay. The question is, if I'm on 10.2 and I'm not using Hierarchy Manager and I'm not using Timeline View, do I still have the requirement to upgrade? Herona, you may be on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. So there is, it's not a requirement, sorry. It's not a requirement, but as I said in the presentation that December 31st, 2020, the Adobe Flash would be end of life. So all these components you're talking about, the Hierarchy Manager and Timeline View, it would be sort of blank page. So if you're not using it, there's no need, but definitely we recommend you to upgrade to 10.3 HotFix 3.
Yeah, and with regards to the target version, again, I think it's individual for every customer, depending on the functionality you use and your solution implementation. So please reach out to Informatica team so we can help you to make this decision on what is the best target version. Okay, what else we have here? What about performance comparison between the previous implementation and the new implementation?
Yeah, I would say the performance would be on par with the, let's say, 10.3 HotFix 2. It would be same. Our aim in this release was to replace the Flash components. Definitely, we have done minute performance changes from a backend, but obviously all the changes are front-end. So I would say the performance would be in par with 10.3 HotFix 2.
Got it. Thank you, Rana. Next question, also performance related. How many relationships can be handled in the new hierarchy view, and if there is any limits on the relationships count?
There is no limit, so to speak, but is there a specific requirement? We would like to talk with you and understand your requirements. Definitely, if the relationship count is very high, there may be, again, I'm using the word may be some issues, but again, we need to understand your requirements to better answer your question. Thank you.
Thanks, Rona. The next question about different types of the layouts that were available previously in the hierarchy manager. So examples are tree view, explorer view. So do we have this view of what happened to these views?
Yes. So in 10.3 HotFix 2 or the prior subject area-based IDD, hierarchy manager had 6 layouts, and network layout was one of them. So in 10.3 HotFix 3, we are just providing, as of now, one layout, that is the hierarchy, the network view layout. Yeah, so in 10.3 HotFix 3, there would only be one layout, as opposed to all 6.
Thank you, Rana. Next question on the UI. So let's say I don't want to see network tab in the UI. Is there any way to disable it for the configuration or any other options?
We need to understand your requirement. So in 10.3 HotFix 3, there is this hierarchy view icon. Are you referring to that? The data view on the top right, there is hierarchy view button, not. Okay, we need to understand your question better, then we could answer your question better once we understand.
Makes sense. Thanks, Rona. Yeah, for any questions you don't feel that we have the full answer, please reach out to us, and we will try to get your questions answered. Okay, I'm going to the next one. Okay, this is answered. This is answered. There is one question on localization. So if there were some localization specific changes in the implementation, what would happen to these changes? Will Abray take care of these changes, or are there extra steps required?
No extra steps. All the localization, whatever configuration you have done, or customization, whatever you have done, let's say in 10.3 HotFix 2 release, automatically those changes would work in 10.3 HotFix 3. No additional configuration is needed.
Thank you. I see that we pretty much answered a lot of questions, and many questions were similar. So if you have any specific version to version upgrade questions, please reach out to Informatica team, and we will try to find the best solution for the upgrade, if it's 10.3 HotFix 3 or 10.4. Okay, I see a couple of new questions. Let's take them, and I think we will be close to the finishing line. Is it applicable for the Entity 360 and Business Entity-driven UI?
Yes, in Entity 360, there is one interface, the Hierarchy Manager interface. It uses Flash, or it used Flash in the previous version. So if you are on, or if you upgrade to 10.3 HotFix 3 and you're using Entity 360, the hierarchy interface would be based on HTML5. That's only one interface in Entity 360, the hierarchy.
Yeah. Thanks, Ron. And I just wanted to add that if you are looking at the Entity 360, you don't have any dependency on the Flash, right? And the best way forward for the Entity 360 and Business Entity-driven UIs is to move to 10.4, since it has much more richer functionality and a lot of investment done in 10.4 with smart file imports, matching, and other things. And if you missed the previous sessions on 10.4, please take your time and review it. It's a lot of information, and it's really cool release. Okay, I think we got the last question here. What's new, or what's next for the HTML5 support, and any new cool features in the pipeline?
Yeah, so I'm assuming this question is not related to 10.3. You're talking about roadmap. Definitely, there are many more cool features. As Dennis mentioned about 10.4, 10.4 has many definitely cool features. And there are many more. On the future releases, we'll have many more cool features, so to speak. Yeah, definitely please reach out to the product management team, and we would be glad to share our roadmap with you.
Yeah, this question is too big for a small, short session like this, but yes, please reach out to us so we can cover the roadmap with you. And also, if you missed Business 360 webinars, which is in clear view type of the event where we were covering a lot of our solutions, please take your time and review the sessions for every solution. It's loaded with demos and wealth of information. Okay, and I think we just get the last one question here. Will upgrading to 10.4 resolve the issues with Flash? So it depends. If you are using subject area IDDs and you're using timeline, history, or hierarchy, then 10.3 HotFix 3 is the best bet for you. If you don't use any of the subject areas based IDD, and you're using Entity 360 with business entities, then 10.4 is the best path forward. Again, there is a lot of the individual things with every implementation and every solution. So we are happy to discuss your individual situation. Please reach out to Informatica team. And I think we covered, pretty much everything. Thanks a lot.